Everybody, welcome to our webinar on financial access infrastructure. As I'm sure everybody on this call is aware, across the UK there are millions of people who are underbanked or unbanked because the infrastructure behind financial services, especially in identity, payments, lending, it wasn't designed with those people in mind, with people with diverse needs, living in difficult circumstances. And if you can't easily prove who you are, or send and receive money, or get a loan or credit, especially as the cost of living rises, your ability to live a normal life at a normal baseline completely breaks down. So today what we're here to talk about is how we can build infrastructure behind the scenes and as service providers in the financial sector to enable people, regardless of their life circumstances, to access services that are right for them, and they can access them in a way that works for them as well. So today, I'm going to be hosting. I'm Chloe. I'm one of the co-founders of and CEO of Vouchsafe. And what we do is we enable people to onboard into financial services compliantly, but also in a way that works for them. So we accept more types of evidence, different types of evidence from all over the world, some really specific types. And also more and more, we see that we're accepting things like digital ID. We came onto the market offering vouching as our sort of first inclusive way of enabling people to prove who they are. So that's using a digital guarantor. That was about 2.5 years ago, and we've learned a lot from then and grown and grown. Today, I'm joined by two experts, legends in this area as well, and that's Andrew and Simon. So first of all, I'd like to hand over to Andrew from Incuto to introduce himself, and then after we'll hand over to Simon.
Thank you very much. I think legend is another word for old, Chloe, so you can't say that anymore.
No, I didn't mean it like that.
That's all right. Everyone knows me. So I'm Andrew Rabbitt. I think I know lots of people on the call anyway. I'm co-founder and CEO at Incuto, and Incuto's primary purpose is to be an infrastructure provider to credit unions in the UK. We're basically helping credit unions to serve, lend to, pay and protect their members. We're a regulated business, so we're a regulated payment provider. We're the only regulated payment provider actually focused on credit unions. So we're enabling credit unions to access real-time payments from a faster payment perspective. One of our biggest investors is Fair by Design, who are sort of backed by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation and a bunch of other sort of large social impact investors, and they came up with this concept of the poverty premium, the idea that people pay more because they're poor. And ID poverty is something that Chloe has talked about lots in the past, and this is, so it's right at the heart of the work that we're trying to do as well. So
thank you, Andrew. Simon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course, Chloe. And again, thank you for inviting me on this with yourself and Andrew. So Simon Thomas, I'm the head of regulated products for allpay. I've been with allpay for about 12.5 years. So you can't use ledger and me. It's like Andrew, tell me I'm old. I've been in this place for too long. And what that means is what I do. I look after all of our regulated products, so all of our prepaid cards and any schemes that we run in below that for where we run them for. Which can be local authorities, governments, anyone who wants to disperse money to someone who needs it the most. I also sit on a payment association, Project Inclusion, which lobbies government into helping people who don't have access to banking services get access to what they need, and different products like that.
Amazing. Thank you, Simon. So the structure of today, we've got some questions prepared, and then we will open to the audience. So for those of you on the call, it would be great to hear some questions from you towards the end. But to kick off, I'm just going to go straight to you, Simon. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the direct-to-consumer products that are offered on the market. So when we are offering those products through partners, how can we make direct-to-consumer products that work for, say, small lenders, small financial institutions, and also at the same time break down barriers for the people that they serve?
Okay, that's right. I'll do a bit of allpay first, because I just realised I passed over that and didn't say what we are, what we do. So it might give some context from where we are then. So allpay's been going about 30 plus years. Founded by one person, Tony Clean, still involved in the business, still on a day-to-day basis. We work with a lot of the top housing associations around the UK, collecting rent for them through a number of different methods, over the counter, through direct debits, through our own app or website. We also work with a lot of government agencies as well, again, to collect different types of way they want to intake money and collect money from people. Our other arm is we are a regulated business through the FCA, and we distribute a lot of government funds for them through direct payments, through we do the Healthy Start card, emergency payments, and any way a government local authority wants to distribute money to someone who is in need of that. And to give you some figures, we collect in about £6.8 billion per year, and we'll distribute about over 600 million this year or last year for the local authorities government. Wow. So that's all. That's where our B2B2C kind of operates. And what we're talking about today is how we can solve kind of that ID poverty problem. So from our experience and what we do, we've kind of looked at and could we merge the two areas of the business, and come up with a new direct consumer product called DOSH, which is mainly focused around how and what we do, our innovation and how it translates into practical tools to help those people. The research we've done, we looked at housing associations, and from the FCA Financial Live Survey, MAT survey, there's about 900,000 people in the UK who don't have a bank account, who are unbanked. Of those, about 177,000 actually are housing association tenants. So particularly what we do collect that and what we're looking at, we designed a product, DOSH, to help them and look at ways they can control their bills, stay in control, and build their financial confidence in the financial industry and financial market. The financial world is moving to a more digital age, and those people can't be left behind. And building on our experience from everything and what we know, we deal with vulnerable customers practically every single day, phoning us up. We know we've got to develop products and services that help them and meet their needs. And we know on a daily basis that if the card doesn't work, if something doesn't matter, that doesn't work, it does matter. It's not that it doesn't matter to anyone. There's a person at the end of the day, and it could even come down to the point where when we've had situations, if something doesn't work, that person doesn't eat for that day, or that person's child doesn't get milk. And we've got to build that technology and that trust to get to meet those people's needs, and building DOSH, and partner with like yourself to get those people who are affected by the poverty ID onto that digital financial system is something which we are trying to do and building a movement to get towards that as well.
Yeah, makes total sense, and that's exactly how we started as well, doing research with the people who are most in need.
Yeah,
I think in terms of how we break down barriers for the people that they serve, I think that's a really good point. You know, we need to build specifically for what they're after. I think I'd like to sort of ask you a further question and say, a little bit cheeky, but
go on.
How do we scale this approach? How do we make it scalable? That, you know, you say you got lots of people through coming through on the phone. How do we make this work for everyone so that the people that we partner with, the businesses that we partner with, don't end up having to pick up that sort of support traffic?
the support traffic and the Slack when someone is not there. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Chloe. Thanks for that. So we have built everything from day one with this. We've built a completely different way we'd normally build. Everything from day one is built to control scale and how we scale and how we scale with people. Particularly our rollout. So we've phased a rollout via a kind of an invite-only code. So we scale in with knowledge that we could at some point get a lot bigger. So everything we've done from day one, whether it's all the documentation we've done, the systems we've built, the client services we've put in place, is built to make sure that if and when we get to a bigger point, it's all there already. So yeah, from day one, if from day one where you're one person on, everything was in preparation there to know it could get bigger and to support everyone that when it does get bigger, it's going to get there.
Yeah, brilliant. I always find that also being involved in your own support traffic as a business means that you can see around corners. Like you know what's coming, and you can improve as you see. So I think I'm really interested in that way of building. I believe that it is the right way to do it. But I also think I'm going to come to you, Andrew, with a question and say, how is it possible that technically, how do we reduce the friction between, say, the end user and the direct to consumer product, but also how do we reduce that friction between sort of all of the technology and service providers in that bubble? How do we make sure that it's easy for everyone to get started?
It's a great question. I'm just going to challenge Simon's point about scale. When we first started, we got our very first credit union, and we thought that if we could build it so it could cope with 10, that would be good. And we've currently got 62, so we've rebuilt ours along the way to recognize that scale is a little different to what you imagine it will be on day one as well. So it's good to hear that it's ready to go and take more than the first 10 customers. Look, our world from almost day one was to sit and look at a bunch of random things that a particular credit union wanted to do, and to go, well, yeah, we could do that. We could just build that and it would work. And in fact, the very first thing we were asked to ever build was a query over a database to find out whose birthday it was next month. That was question number one. That was the genesis story of Incuto as a business, right? Whose birthday is it next month? We went, okay, I mean, that's like an easy question. We could do that. What are you doing with it? And we basically rolled out the rest of the platform around this notion that people are trying to ask these questions, understand this stuff. What has always been interesting is when you look at the relationship, because we're now regulated, the credit unions are way more regulated than we are, but there are gaps in that regulation all over the place. And so we fill little gaps in places. And when we're talking about things like onboarding people to other services, even if you look within the walls, and I'm not going to name credit bureaus because we work very closely with them and they're great, but you can fail an ID check whilst passing a credit score, a credit search. And so even within the data sets of big organizations, these gaps appear. And so what's always been interesting from our perspective is in reducing the friction is creating a kind of layer in the middle that goes, I can translate both sides. So I can take what is an unformatted set of data in a back-end system that doesn't conform to any particular standard. I can make it look like something, and I can communicate it in 5 different ways to 5 different services that mean that I capture it once, but I can onboard to many. And recognizing that everyone in the chain is regulated, so everybody has to meet a certain de minimis standard of information and data that they've collected is really interesting, because the idea that you could be onboarded to a credit union, you could borrow, you could save and deposit money, but you might get rejected by a debit card provider somewhere up the chain, a prepaid card provider somewhere up the chain because you didn't meet their standard, has always been really weird. So we started on that premise that when our role in the world is to be that sort of layer between, to translate those disparate requirements. And I think from a scale perspective, that's such an important point, because if you've got the best service in the world, but you just don't have anywhere to plug it in, it just isn't going to work. Especially the organizations that we deal with, no matter how big they are, they cannot deal with the overhead of a whole bunch of more paperwork trying to scale these things up. So by being able to plug them in together and translate that requirement, I think that's our thing. And that information flow, the data flow between it, all the way from a customer journey, and making sure that, all the way from an onboarding form through to every provider has become our kind of mantra. We store addresses in about 6 different formats, just because people have different requirements and different things, and that's a complexity you just can't overcome without actually just building to it, essentially. So,
and just coming, Chloe, just to build on Andrew's point about the people you work with, particularly suppliers and the chain, we've done, and you've got to do a lot of work because of what we're aiming at. People who are unbanked, underbanked, potentially are some of the most, I don't want to cliche, but could be the most vulnerable people around the UK, because they don't have the normal banking services and could be open to scams and things like that. We've done a lot of work with suppliers to show them, and I know it's a lot of work to show everyone how and what our journey looks like and who our card holders are. So not just to say and go and select someone who gives you the cheapest cheapest deal. It's, do they understand what you're trying to achieve, and are they coming on that journey with you? Because then at that point, when you phone them at 10 o'clock in the night and say something's not working, everyone jumps on it because they know the impact of something not working will have on everyone down that chain to that person. And even to the point, there's a lot of people who do have accounts, particularly just coming on a bit what Andrew said, there's a lot of people who do have accounts, but they feel excluded because of the friction which they've got with their current accounts, and the products and services they use from other people, and they just don't get on when they say look for alternatives to use, because they get on with those a lot better and they trust those people a lot better than the people they normally bank with.
It's really interesting, isn't it, Simon? Because people, you look around at the world and go, okay, there's loads of really cool apps out there, lots of things that are really sort of blowing people's socks off, and it sprays confetti around and tells you that you celebrate doing something random. But so few of them are aimed at dealing with the actual problem of getting in the first place. Like, it's great. There are so many apps that you look at in the world that have been created and you go, that's cool. If you're a high net worth individual and trying to work out how much all of your pensions are worth and what your mortgage is today and all that kind of stuff. But the moment you take those things away and go, well, imagine that isn't the scenario that you're in. You are not overwhelmed with too many accounts. You're underwhelmed by maybe not even being able to get one. The sharpness of the focus on what gets built and how well it's supported. To your point, it's like the premium support thing. If you call a high street bank today, you will get, our lines are open 9 till 5. That's like, cool, thanks, that's great. But my problem happened at 9:30 at night. But the assumption is just use one of your other cards. What's the big deal? Just go to the wallet and choose another one. And this is the dilemma that people get into between we want to be cool versus we want to be sustainably good at dealing with these very simple problems. It's like your assumption is people can just get in because that's people's assumption. But if that's the first block, I mean, that's why we've come to Vouchsafe, obviously, because one of the big barriers for us is that you get people who just fail an automated ID check. The automation bit's cool. Like, who wouldn't want to be automated? But the point where that fails, you can't just go, sorry, it's a no. You have to have a better answer than that. And so many people just go, sorry, it's a no. And our whole world has been focused on this get to yes agenda of going, we've got to help people find a way around the no and not allow that to be the easy answer. So it's really cool to hear the stuff that you're doing, because especially around housing associations, because I mean, the big challenge in the world is that the cost to this isn't just the individual, it's all of the organizations that they're dealing with as well. Everybody's working far too hard and at too high a cost to try and serve customers in that band, right?
Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, but I also think there's an element of people not, I don't think in this sector, but I think generally those apps that you're talking about, Andrew, there's a pattern that people have fallen into where they don't want to serve the hardest to reach customers because it costs money and effort. And actually, by serving those customers as a business, you have more customers. It's a win-win.
Unless you're raising investment, Chloe, in which case, if you don't put the word financial inclusion on a bullet point, people don't want to talk. But if you put it too high up, they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
It's got to be on there somewhere.
I do think that's a good and different point. That
There's
I think
whole
that
story in
VC funding has ruined people building. When we did our first round, people were just asking us if we weren't too niche, and my answer was, well, no, because we can verify all sorts of documents, but also how is 11 million people in the UK without a passport or driving license? How's that a niche? That's 11 million people.
Good addressable market.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So I think that's a definitely a conversation to be had that I fully agree with. I think I want to pick up on something that you said, Andrew, and also Simon, about how 9:30 at night and helping customers when it really, really matters, which if you're serving customers who are in vulnerable circumstances, when it really matters is when it happens. As we all sort of focus on slightly different things in our products and we're all regulated in slightly different ways, when you essentially create a partnership to then offer services to providers or credit unions, say, what do we need to do beyond just making sure that the technology and the support packages serve end users? What do we need to do to actually make sure that we can, when we make those decisions of who we partner with, how do we make sure that we're partnering with the right people to make sure that we're serving everybody? I'm going to go with Simon first, and then Andrew, I'd like to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah. So this starts from probably the beginning of looking at and sourcing certain suppliers. Because we're regulated, we've got to go do all our due diligence to make sure the company is sustainable we're going to be working with. And like I said before, it's looking at, and again, getting your suppliers to understand what you're going to achieve. It's not we've been guilty of probably in the past is just looking to say we need this particular gap in our product. We need to go something. Let's go find somebody to do it, and they don't know why and what they do. They just build something for you to plug into everything else you're doing. With what we looked at now, it's giving them kind of like a deck and walking them through. This is what we're doing now. This is what we're looking to achieve. This is where we want to be and what we want to do. So they fully understand and are on that journey with you from the very start through to when you hit live and you've got those customers on there and everything going on. And there's also probably all the stuff, not just suppliers, internally to look at as well. So again, all those client services agents which are going to pick up, you've educated them so they know exactly again what journey is going on. So they're not just left to answer phone calls. You tell them what to answer the calls for. And it encompasses probably everything around looking at, again, what DOSH is doing as well, is that financial education for everyone to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and then giving people who you give the product to those tools and the education to help them use them in a good way that will benefit them as well.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's addressing the problem as a whole together, isn't it? Andrew?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So look, we've got a slightly different position in the world in that we're offering our customers a single contract solution where possible. So we're taking responsibility for those what would otherwise be third-party suppliers by offering first-line support against them. Mainly because if it's broken for one, the likelihood is it's broken for 62. And so, rather than getting a load of miserable phone calls, but it's super interesting in how you choose them. So Chloe, if you reflect back on how we sort of formed a partnership, it was fast. And it was fast because it was really obvious that we could work together, like alignment of ambition, enthusiasm, excitement, but actually also a recognition of the problem statement. And Simon, you talked really passionately earlier about this idea that if that card fails, then people don't eat, right? And it's funny that we deal with some very large organizations. When you use the acronym CSR, they go, not heard of that one. You go, cool, wrong one, next kind of thing, right? And they're not really that into it. And again, you get a lot of those relationships that aren't relationships, they're commercial, and it's fine, that's great. But you get ones where you absolutely know that they understand, they're trying to fix a problem. And some of the biggest corporates that we work with, people like TransUnion and Mastercard and Clearbank, they absolutely, they didn't need CSR explaining to them, and we're not a CSR project to them. This is important because it's part of their world. And so what we look for in partnerships is this actually part of your world? It's not, we don't want to be a charity case. We don't want to be like a sub panel somewhere. We want to be mainstream in their world, but be taken seriously. And so what we look for is that, like, can we be taken seriously? And if you have to spend the first 15 minutes of your intro call explaining what a credit union is and what it does, that's a pretty good indicator that maybe we've got the wrong conversation. So we are prepared to walk the mile on that, and we will spend hours, as people well know if they know me, I will spend hours explaining it. But if they're really not getting it, we just move on. But in our world, we take responsibility for those relationships because we're going to front them up. We're going to apologize on their behalf. So if we're going to do that, we're sure as hell going to make sure that they're good ones and they're worthy of that apology. So.
Yeah, and we've only probably just spoken about 10 minutes before the call and after this, and a lot of the suppliers which you just mentioned are the same ones we've chosen, and it's probably for the same reasons as well. So it's good to know that both of us are looking at the right people to do the right work for us behind those scenes.
Yeah, you can't be starting a call with someone it's an important partnership having to explain, like, you know, what a credit union is or what a housing association is. It's just, yeah, you need that baseline, don't you? Great. So I would really like to open the floor to questions from the audience now, because we've got 15 minutes left. And if anybody would like to write one in or pop their hand up, then please do. I'll give it a second. And if not, I've got some pre-submitted ones. Cool. Okay, I'll just go straight in with one. So we've spoken a lot about digital services and onboarding online and sort of existing in that digital world that we all now are in. But in a world that's more and more online and relying more and more on online services, how do we make sure that people can still access cash and the things that they know well? And I will, Simon, I'll go to you first.
Okay, yeah, good question. Thanks for getting me first, Chloe. Thank you. Okay, so I've always got a stat in the back of my head. I love a few stats, so I'll come with this one. So I'm from a little village town called Merthyr. We've got a 60,000 population, ex-mining community, leaders of the industrial age revolution and everything like that. There's about 40% of people in Merthyr is financially excluded. 11.5% of those have no access to bank accounts. And this is the stat I'm going to get to. 20% of adults in Wales have a low digital capability, which means a lot of people still rely on cash and still need access to cash and to do and live their lives. We, as allpay, probably still collect through our collection business about £186 million monthly in cash, just people paying a post office pay zone. And in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, which was published in November, I think it was, by the government, one of those pillars was still allowing people to access to cash and about all the services they could do within that. Again, with DOSH, we recognise certain things like that and leveraging what we do with those rent collections. For DOSH particularly, people can go into the post office, load money onto their card to get money, cash onto a digital platform so they can then go and spend what they would need to spend. They can also take money out and then check a balance, things like that. So we've looked at, again, coming from the previous question, picking partners, a lot of the people who we are targeting already go into a post office for us and do transactions through the person they know and trust, the local postmaster. We've added that onto the DOSH, so they can then now go and do exactly as they would normally do and transact and put money onto cards to help it. But yeah, access to cash is still vitally important for everyone, and that's why it's one of the pillars.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, but I always have that's how I also learned about money, was like cash in a jam jar, counting pennies. And I think that's still how a lot of, like, that's still how people's brains operate.
Particularly when we have come out of a financial crisis and verging on what is going on around the world, potentially other stuff going on as well. When people need a budget, a lot of people fall back to cash, and like I said, cash in envelopes, cash in those little Polly Pocket things, got a few, to try and budget and to manage their money in the way they can. And there's always different types of digital tools to help them do that. But it's everything falls back to cash, because you can see it, you can touch it, you know how much is there.
Yeah, and when you run out of it, you've run out of it. You don't go into an overdraft.
Yeah.
I was going to come to you on that question, Andrew, but actually Gareth's put some really interesting questions in the chat, so I'm going to come to you with them. Sure. And I'm going to try and combine them. But Gareth said there have been two big providers of card and account payments in the credit union space. What do you think are the main drivers, and what lessons going forward, like what lessons should we, from that, should we keep going forward into new products? And then also, given the transformation program that was announced on the 18th of March, what needs to be done from a technology perspective to modernize and expand? I know I've given you two questions in one there. The first one is about what lessons have we learned from card account payments in the credit union space?
So, Gareth, great questions. Look, the card provider bit is really simple for me. I'm allowed to be the Yorkshire rude one on the call, so that's why Chloe's invited me. She said I had permission to be controversial if I wanted to, and so. But there is a sense that previous attempts to do this have seen an opportunity, a captive audience opportunity, to make some money out of people who can least afford it. I have an allergic reaction to that at every possible corner. But these companies have to be sustainable, and so there is a point where there is a price point for some of these services, and they just need to be made clearer, more accessible as they go. Now, I'm not going to comment on the previous people who went out of business, except to say it was their only business. And I think part of the challenge here is, if you have to make money out of people in a debit card, and that's your business, that isn't a very sustainable business. Because if you think back, Simon, you shared the thing about financial education, about how you learn about money and cash in the pocket and the Ziploc. My dad was a builder and retired a long time ago, and my financial education was a check used to arrive every week, and he knew whether we'd had a good week or not, and so he would drop the envelope. And if the envelope dropped quickly, it meant there was lots of ink on it and it had been a good week. If the envelope dropped slowly, now it turns out that the laws of physics mean the envelope always drops at the same freaking rate. However, that was my financial education. You knew not to ask for too many things if the envelope had dropped slowly, right? And that now 0.2% of the volume of payments that go through in the world are in a check, right? And I was surprised to even hear that it was that high. And so our financial education has so radically shifted, but so too the tools that we use to actually make payments. So when you're looking at all this stuff, the one steady, reliable thing along the way that kind of underpins it is access to cash. And it's funny because when you look at it, you go, actually, the one most expensive thing for those card providers is giving you access to cash. Like, that's the worst nightmare, is that people keep going to the cash machine and taking out 20 quid. And so I think the lessons learned from that are, you can't have a business that is purely about gouging the poorest people on charging them, £3.50 to take a cash withdrawal. That just isn't a sustainable model, and frankly shouldn't be. So that's that. And on the credit union transformation, this is so interesting. So I'm biased because we're here. I think there just has to be, people keep using this horrible word of collaboration, and it's nonsense, because the idea that 10 credit unions would all get in a room and think about something together and then come up with it means that there are too many technologists. It assumes that they're not focused on what they're meant to be doing. What you need is nice suppliers in the market who are prepared to work openly with other people and not take the mick. And it just doesn't work that way often. It's too closed shop. You've got to have people who are open to an agenda of change and are open to actually drive it forward, sponges for ideas. I'm always going to think we probably fall down on lots of those fronts too along the way, but you've got, the transformation has to be in the sector, in the technology provider sector. And candidly, I would put the technology bit under the regulators' purview too. I would cut out a load of the noise and nonsense and make the regulators take some view on whether technology is good or bad for the sector as well. Because it doesn't, it just sends out, the regulators send out letters to people saying, you must ensure these things, but the credit unions are very disenabled from being able to actually control that with their supply chain. So I think we just need a lot more focus on the right people doing the right things in that sector. And part of this is the conversation that we're having right now about connecting all these best practice tools in to make sure they deliver the right thing and lower the costs. If technology puts the price up, it doesn't make any sense. It's about delivering the services affordably. So there you go, Chloe. Two answers. Sorry for taking too much time.
Amazing, thank you. No, that was great. I'm just flicking through the questions now, and I think here we go. There's one from Matt Robinson. What specific actions could banks, UK finance, or the government regulators take to better support access to people who are ID impoverished? I think I might start on that one.
Good.
So I think that the FCA took a step in the right direction with, oh gosh, it's gone from my mind, but essentially the vulnerable customers
Consumer duty.
Can't believe that went from my brain. I think that was a step in the right direction. I think that stipulating that UK financial services actually must be flexible in what they accept. So we see that most financial services that we've spoken to with the stuff that they're currently using to onboard will accept a UK passport or a driving license, and then they will do an address check through a credit file. And if that doesn't work, then you can't have an account. And actually, there are loads of ways that people can prove who they are that aren't a passport or a driving license. In terms of the government, I think they have recently launched the draft of their latest digital verification services trust framework, snappily named, and that focuses on they've introduced some policy around vouching, which we are really excited about, and we were sort of part of that conversation informing that, and that for us is really important because it means that financial services, well, they will have to eventually use an IDV, anti-money laundering, KYC onboarding platform that is certified to that framework. So the fact that we do vouching and we are certified to we're already in that certification is really exciting, and that's again a step in the right direction. But I also think that digital ID will be a good mover for this, and I know that's a controversial opinion, but if the government can provide an ID that is digital, and I know it won't, they're saying it won't be mandatory now, but if that is an option and that is free, that's going to open doors for so many people in so many different circumstances, because it will be quicker and easier to use. It's much easier, even if you're not very digitally literate, to be able to use a digital ID that's on your phone instead of trying to scan a picture of a driving license and get the lighting right and all of those things. So I think there are some things that are happening that are pushing this in the right direction and will make it easier for people, but essentially, like, enforced inclusion is always the way that's gonna get people to listen. Andrew and Simon, do you have anything to either of you have anything to add on that?
Go on. So what more can the government do? So they published in part of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, again, not to go on, but in that was how the big banks look at to people who lack ID, and in that they did mention the vouching for as well. But I think there's a lot more around that before. And there was one of the comments in the chat around particularly cash and gambling, and it's not a very good thing. There's one country, and I can't remember which one it is, in the Nordics, to try and solve that and to link that digital ID. They have like a gambling card, and it's not ID card, but it's a gambling card, where you present that at the time which you got to go and gamble. So something like that linked to that to try and solve other problems as well, would help. But there's probably a lot more to do around that than just saying we're going to give you a digital ID, carry on type thing. But this is definitely moving in a right direction to help people. Are they going to force people who want digital ID the same price as a passport at the moment? Because a lot of people can't afford to buy that passport, can't afford a driving license to get a driving license. Is it going to be something you just get? There's a few questions which I'll probably look to find if I can get those answered before anything else. Yeah.
I was actually just going to say, so Mukesh, I'm really sorry I missed all your questions there, but yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just flicking through everything, but
do you want me to pick up on the points? So Mukesh, apologies, because I saw your messages flicking down as well. I might not be the perfect person to answer them. There's lots of moves at the moment, and Mastercard are probably the one organization who are looking to push the agenda the most of lowering the cost of access to cards and card products. And I know, Simon, that's probably your bit more than anything else. But on this issue of ID, and Chloe, you made the point, it is controversial, and it does depend on the scenario of whether it costs money or not. It's kind of funny, right, that people are rightly nervous, afraid, and concerned about what would happen to their data in the event that somebody gets hold of it. And these things are never sold in the benefit to the consumer. And I live in a really nice leafy suburb, and every few days some lovely police officers walk past. So you would imagine that the world is policed really well, and they're really nice, and they'll say hello and good morning to you. I do not live in a place where no police wander around the streets at all. So my opinion of what the world looks like is judged from my perspective of looking out in my leafy suburb, and not from the perspective of someone who is stuck in a place where there just aren't any police officers who won't go there. So this is the same with ID. It's all right having an opinion about whether you think that ID is a good thing or a bad thing, unless you are in a position where you have none and are therefore excluded. I would imagine that those people would really challenge the fact that it's a bad idea. I would imagine that those people probably think, if it allows me to access all of these things, I'm all okay with it. And funnily enough, they're the voices that don't get heard. And Mukesh, you have listed a list of people whose voices generally do not get heard. And I think that is the bit that we need to absolutely challenge here, that if nothing else, our roles here are to make sure that those voices are heard and not ignored because people are worried about the fact that the bit of, the app on the phone might be tracked by someone. Trust me, having worked a lot in the history with government agencies, they don't have the capability to track their own data, never mind yours. So don't worry about that. You can cut that out. It's not live, are we? So it's okay.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. We've actually reached time. I've really enjoyed this. It's been really, really interesting. So thank you, both of you. And I think that that's a really nice note to end on as well, that I think all three of us and the organisations that we're in, and we are actively trying to solve those problems for people in the most difficult circumstances. So on that, I just want to say that a few things. So first of all, we've got a digital ID in the UK downloadable version of this. I won't be posting them to you all, which you can grab on our website. I will put a link on LinkedIn after this. So that's from Vouchsafe. Andrew, did you want to say anything? And Simon, do you want to say anything before you head off?
Just thank you for the invite, and if anybody wants to talk more, then it's my name at incuto.com, so more than welcome to get in touch. Simon.
Yeah, and just again, thank you for the invite. Anyone wants to know any more, go to my dosh.com. There's a part there for our partners. So if anyone wants to look and get more information from us, we've got partner packs just out to you. If there's anyone who wants a card holder that needs anything, there's a register interest as well. We control the rollout. It's invite only at the moment. Like I said, the scale and everything. And just the last takeaway from me, just for anyone, is, and I always use this, I like it so much, the financial inclusion for us only succeeds when it shows up in everyone's day-to-day lives. And that's why I said the comment at the beginning, it's the impact on those individual times when people need the most is where we gain trust and actually shows difference in what we are doing.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. On that note, thank you everybody for joining us this Monday lunchtime. Have a lovely rest of your week. And yeah, we will put everything in the wrap-up email. So yeah, thank you for joining.